when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. I'm sailing right behind come true. Ooh, someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't I? Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh why can't I?
On behalf of the Fletcher family, I want to thank you for coming to the service to celebrate the life of our dear friend and brother, Ralph Fletcher. Please bow your heads with me in prayer. Lord, we gather in unity to mourn the death of our friend and loved one, Ralph Fletcher. We loved him so much, but you loved him more and have brought him into your presence. Lord, everyone here is thankful for the times you gave us to share with our beloved Ralph, who is now resting in your glory. We thank you, O Lord, for all the beautiful ways you've used our departed loved one in the life of every person here. And we are here to celebrate someone whom we cherished. Our hearts are full of hope that we will see Ralph again when we go home to you. Ralph was your faithful servant and served you diligently. May he find love and peace in your presence and enjoy your glory. We love and adore you, Lord. In Jesus' name, we believe and pray. Amen. As I look out into this crowd, it is evident by the turnout how much we all loved Ralph. I'm sure we all could spend the rest of the day telling a funny or touching story that happened with Ralph, but we will have to keep it to a minimum due to time. My time with Ralph started in the 70s when I worked weekends at the old Metropolitan Ambulance Service downtown. I can promise you that a ton of shenanigans can happen with several young men together for a 24-hour shift. There was nothing like grabbing onto a stretcher handle to remove the stretcher at an emergency scene, and someone smeared half a tube of KY jelly on the handle. But you had to go on. Danny Alexander shared a funny story about Ralph when Ralph became a police officer. He would still come by in his patrol car to visit with the guys at the ambulance service when he could. This one time, Ralph pulled up next to the ambulance building in the alley to run in to use the bathroom. When he was in the bathroom, Danny and others decided to pull his still running patrol car down the alley and park it at the Newcastle Drive-In about a half a block away. When Ralph said his goodbyes, he went outside to get back on patrol, but his car was nowhere in sight. You can only imagine how panicked poor Ralph was as he ran back into the building yelling, "Where did you guys put my car?" Of course, everyone denied having any knowledge of this, but I think Ralph could read Danny's face, knowing he had something to do with his car missing. So Ralph started to press on Danny where he had put his car as he pointed a can of mace at Danny. After a few more minutes of panic setting in on Ralph, he pointed the mace down at Danny's lower legs and gave it a squirt. Ralph was trying to get his point across about how much he needed his patrol car back and thinking of the trouble he could be in if he had to report his vehicle had been stolen to the commanding officer. But the joke was on Danny. He gave in and told Ralph where his car was parked. The mace started to burn not only Danny's legs, but was filtering up to his now burning eyes. Then it happened. Danny got an emergency call and had to go on his ambulance call, burning and all. He said it was a miserable call. My brother Larry, a retired Amarillo police officer, also worked with Ralph. Larry was very fond and had very fond memories of his time working with Ralph. One story he shared with me was one Ralph told many times to others. Ralph was in the front yard mowing his grass when he noticed a car pulled up and stopped at the curb. A man getting out of his vehicle was approaching Ralph. So he turned the mower off and greeted the man saying, "How's it going?" The man said he was fine and was stopping by to see how much he charged the house's owner to mow it. With lightning speed and humor that only Ralph had. "Well, sir, I don't charge her anything, but she does let me stay with her at night." With that, the man turned around, got in his car, and left. A vivid memory I will never forget. A time on August 18th, 2016, I was blessed to be the lay director of a men's 72-hour Christian retreat called Walk to Emmaus. Ralph was accepted to come on this retreat along with 35 other men. As with most who attended this event, they are dropped off at Cedar Canyon by their sponsor with no way back home until Sunday evening. It was like an old homecoming for Ralph and I. And Ralph was initially wondering what he had gotten himself into, but by Sunday, he didn't want to leave. He relayed to Melinda later, when he got home, like many others, he was so glad that he went, and it changed his life eternally. I'm sure glad I got to spend that time with him. Anne Marie. I know your dad meant the world to you. When I look at you, I not only see your dad, but I also see Jesus shining from you. You told me that your dad was an amazing dad, and you could not be where you are today had it not been for him. He was amazing, and I think we all share this feeling of your dad and how he touched every life he was involved in. He left you a beautiful legacy that will live through you as long as you live. As many exclaimed, Ralph was one of the good guys. He will be missed, but never forgotten. He must be looking down right now, bragging to everyone how proud he is of you and your accomplishments. One comfort to you might be that God took your dad because Jesus needed your dad in heaven more than we needed here on earth. And Melinda, you could never be loved more than how Ralph loved you. What a beautiful reunion it will be one day at the table for you both. Now we're going to watch a video, and then we'll hear from Ralph's friend, David Norris, after the video.
I remember Daddy's hands folded silently in prayer and reaching out to hold me when I had a nightmare. You could read quite a story in the calluses and lines. Years of work and worry had left their mark behind. I remember Daddy's hands, how they held my mama tight and patted my back for something done right. There are things that I've forgotten that I loved about the man, but I'll always remember the love in Daddy's hands. Daddy's hands were soft and kind when I was crying. Daddy's hands were hard as steel when I'd done wrong.
Said I was in my early 40s with a lot of life before me, when a moment came that stopped me on a dime. I spent most of the next days looking at the x-rays, talking about the options and talking about sweet time. I asked him when it sank in that this might really be the real end. How's it hit you when you get that kind of news? Man, what'd you do? And he said, I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. And I loved deeper, and I spoke sweeter, and I gave forgiveness I've been denying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. He said I was finally the husband that most of the time I wasn't, and I became a friend would like to have. And all of a sudden going fishing wasn't such an imposition. And I went 3 times that year, I lost my dad. Well, I finally read the good book, and I took a good long hard look at what I'd do if I could do it all again. And then I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. And I loved deeper, and I spoke sweeter, and I gave forgiveness I've been denying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. Like tomorrow was a gift, and you got eternity to think about what you do with it. What did you do with it? What did I do with it? What would I do with it? Skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. And I loved deeper, and I spoke sweeter, and I watched an eagle as it was flying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. 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 To live like you were
My name is David Norris, and I get to follow that. Wow. Ralph Fletcher was my friend. He's still my friend. Like all of you, all of us gathered here today, we will see him again soon enough. I want to thank every one of you for being here, because we're all bonded together because of our relationship with Ralph. Everyone from the law enforcement community, special prosecution unit community, the motorcycling community, his community of friends, and of course, Ralph's family. I've been without words since Tuesday. I'm very happy and grateful, honored, and privileged to be here today, and that I was asked by Melinda at Ralph's request before he passed away that I be able to speak with you and to share with you our love for Ralph. He touched all our hearts. In so many ways, he not only touched our lives, but he saved our lives in so many ways, either directly or indirectly. And over dinner last night, I took a lot of notes, and I couldn't read a word of them last night. We shared so many experiences, I laughing, crying at the same time. But in looking back, I'm not sure I had actually met Ralph before he and I embarked on a great motorcycle journey to Two Harbors, Minnesota. I might have met him one time. My wife Candace knew Ralph. They were working together at the Potter County District Attorney's Office, and introduction was made. And anyway, we took off on an epic journey 20 years ago. Two Harbors, Minnesota, and back. And along the road up in the upper peninsula of Michigan, I looked down and my voltmeter was like on beyond zero. It was like non-existent. And luckily we were coming into Marquette, Michigan, and we pulled over. We found a Harley-Davidson shop. We sent the other guys on their way because they were going to have to order a part. And so we spent the night there in Two Harbors. That's where I really got to know Ralph. There were many, sometimes we'd want to go, it was still that I would want to go explore things, and he wouldn't want to go to do it because there were snakes in there. He didn't want to go in there. I understood. He and I both share the affinity. We don't trust anything that doesn't have shoulders. So, but we got up the next morning. We went to the Harley shop. The delivery truck had shown up. And there was the part that I needed, the stator wasn't there. They somehow or another got the wrong one. And they were going to have to order it again. It would be another night. And Ralph said, no, it's not. He pointed to another motorcycle, same year model as mine, and said, does that have a stator in it? And the guy said, yes. He says, well, let's take the stator out of that one, put it in that one, order your other stator, put it back in that one, and let's get on the road. And the guy says, wow, that's a good idea. The scary part about that guy, besides running the mechanic shop of the Harley-Davidson, he was also a mechanic for American Eagle, so I'm not really sure about that. But we got to know each other so very well. We took out of Marquette, Michigan, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we took off. And we did some of the most amazing riding I have ever been on. And I've got wheels on the ground in all states west of the Mississippi River. That one was fantastic. I won't bore you into too much of it. Just suffice it to say that in tandem, we fractured a few speed limits in the United States and Canada. But we knew and on gassing up, he made friends. Ralph always made friends. There were a couple of Royal Canadian Mounted Policemen. He went over and introduced himself to them, and they gave us a somewhat tacit permission that we were going to be on the absolute very best road in Canada, and that it would be in our best interest if we got to Wawa, Ontario before the sun went down, because there were mooses out there. And not to mention, well, we didn't see any mooses, but we did put quite a dent in the mosquito population that night. But Ralph and I knew early on from that very first trip that we had each other's backs regardless of the situation, and we knew who we could get back to back in a dark alley with. But there were so many other wonderful things said last night about Ralph. An amazing man, an amazing husband, an amazing father, amazing grandfather, an amazing friend. And while each story was its own story, our stories were also the stories of each other in that room last night and gathered here today. Whether it was another chemical mace incident in the home, or tying his girl's hair back so tight that they felt like they were from China with their eyes pulled back. I was amazed to learn also yesterday, because I never knew Ralph when he had hair. But I think he also did a pretty good job of making sure all pictures of when he had hair and it was in cornrows, that he got rid of all of those. But he was an amazing dad, an amazing husband, an amazing friend. In the investigation world, Ralph was known for, Ralph, go out and find this for us. And he did. Another person said that Ralph never treated me as a coworker. He treated me like I was his daughter. He was a protector. Ralph could hug a person like no other person, deep, meaningful, and you knew when you had been hugged by Ralph. It was the next thing to a chiropractic adjustment sometimes. Ralph was a fighter, and he fought wholeheartedly for the people he loved, especially his family. I also learned last night that there are some things that bore deeper investigation that cannot be talked about now because the statute of limitations has not run yet. So, and in the midst of some of the laughter around that and some of the other stories that were going on, there was a part of the story that I didn't quite pick up on. But it seems that Ralph at one time went on I'm going to say a high-risk arrest warrant one time, and when they had taken the suspect down and getting him cuffed, he was immediately accused, wanting to know what his service weapon was. It seemed to be more like a .22, and Ralph said it's a .380. And he was accused of carrying a pimp gun to an arrest. Okay, there's more to that story, I think, but I also know that Ralph still has that .380. Ralph loved to cook, especially ribs, and he loved teaching people how to use outdoor grills and smokers. And that the most important lesson that anyone could learn is that if you are looking, it is not cooking. Ralph loved to travel and went on many adventures with family and friends along the way. We just saw that in the video. But what wasn't shown in the video is that on numerous occasions, having fun, like in Estes Park, Ralph's secret desire to be a fashion trendsetter would come out, known for wearing his polo shirt backwards and not knowing it. But Scott shared something with me that it so resonated with me. When we all knew that Ralph began a lot of his early law enforcement career was as a motorcycle policeman. And he was very well known, urban legend, that he would write his own mother a ticket. And that resonated with me so much because I would tell people about my writing adventures and who I was going with and where we were going. And people would say, and I would be riding with Ralph Fletcher, and people would say, oh, I know him. Isn't he that black motorcycle cop? And I'd go, like Scott, well, he is a motorcycle cop. There's several of them. But I do believe that every people I would meet would say, yeah, Ralph. Yeah, I know Ralph. He gave me a ticket one time. Yeah, I remember one guy who was a mortgage loan officer. Ralph gave him gave his mortgage loan officer a ticket while he was in the mortgage process. Didn't bat an eye. He just did it. I think Ralph, it was just non-negotiable with him. He as a motorcycle policeman, I really do believe that he may have ticketed the entire population of Amarillo in that time frame. And some of you may have experienced what I call Ralph's scary voice. That voice he could use in dealing with the more nefarious side of humanity. But we also know that he had the soft voice. And I remember on our trip around Lake Superior, there would be other tourists that kind of backing off from these leather-clad, raunchy-looking guys. We're harmless, but by our appearance, you couldn't tell that. And the children, would be interested, and Ralph would approach them and introduce himself in the voice that could reach children, the voice of Chocolate Chip. That's what he was called. And I remember very recently when the last time I visited Ralph at home, many times afterwards in the hospital, of course. But my youngest granddaughter, Dakota, came with me. And those two bonded very closely. They connected very, very well. Ralph was my granddaughter was a very, very young fifth grader. Ralph was a very, very young fifth grader with his birthday as well. And they had a wonderful conversation. He's an amazing man. But not only could Ralph reach children, he knew judges, juries, and people. He was a straight talker, and he always had the right mixture of care and candor. And he loved his family. He loved his friends. Ralph also taught us so much about social and cultural ignorance that we have, so we could all grow as human beings. He was that amazing dad that never gave up on his kids. He was always there at the cross-country finish line, and more recently, even using a walker to get to Max's football games. And yeah, he even showed up taking pictures at volleyball games with a giant iPad as a camera. But nonetheless, Ralph always acted out of love, supporting, encouraging, and including. There's so many memories of road trips and more recently hospital visits. He is now getting the rest he deserves. And St. John the Divine in his Revelation, chapter 21, verse 4, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there will be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for all these former things have passed. Words are so inadequate at a time like this. However, our time together yesterday evening proved to me so many things that I and you also know about our friend Ralph. There are however many words that came to my mind about my friend Ralph that I heard, that I always thought about, and I heard them over and over again last night. Ralph was our guardian. He was our protector. He was a leader who talked with me. We talked at length about solving the problems, being the leaders in the world, about teaching people, being the example of people, taking personal responsibility, personal accountability for our actions, and to make our world a better place. He courageously showed us the way, and we have all heard the flutter of our superhero's cape. There's no greater friend, no worse enemy. Fiercely dedicated and committed to his family, his friends, and his communities. In the Bible, John chapter 15, verse 13 says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ralph was, to me, just such a friend. Lamp was the light in our lives that lit the entire room. He loved his family and friends as he loved himself. Ralph knew how to love, and he was a shining example for all of us. The word integrity came up many times. Integrity, from the Greek word integer, meaning whole. Ralph was the whole man, and he made us whole. And now he is made whole by his faith in God. Strength, courage, and will. Ralph's will to live was noticed by us all. His ability to give himself a command and follow it. And he did that. And for the last 12 years, Ralph lived until he died, and he never confused the two. One word that never was mentioned last night, but we all know it. It didn't have to be said, and that was success. Ralph succeeded in the things that mattered most. And Melinda, when you asked me to speak, the first thing I knew exactly something I had to share. The words of Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote so hundreds of years ago. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you lived, this is to have succeeded. Melinda, Ralph was an amazing husband. Girls, your father was an amazing dad. My brother, Ralph Fletcher, was an amazing brother and our amazing friend, and he succeeded. Ralph fought the good fight. He has finished the race. He has kept the faith. But I miss my brother dearly.
Thank you, David. I want to share a Bible verse with you. Psalm 116:15 reads, "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints." Why would the Lord see precious in the death of a loved one? Well, when we consider what is precious to the Lord, it is not confined to earthly things, but from a heavenly view. When Ralph took his last breath here on earth and arrived in God's heaven, it was no surprise, because God was looking for his arrival. It was precious in his eyes. Can you imagine the Father's joy when he welcomes his children home and sees the absolute ecstasy in being face to face with his Son? When death comes to the follower of Christ, God opens his arms to welcome that person into his presence. Imagine the last time Ralph's eyes closed here on earth. The next time they opened, he was looking into the face of God. Through our tears, we can see how precious that is in God's eyes. To see Jesus will be heaven's greatest joy for those who follow him. I know if Ralph could tell us one thing now about his new eternal home, it would be this. The Holy Bible describes what heaven will be like. And one of the things it tells us in Revelation 21:21, the great street of the city was of pure gold and translucent glass. Although this is hard for us to imagine, it reminds us that heaven is far more glorious than anything we will ever know in this life. Every picture of God's heaven the Bible points us is beyond our understanding, but assures us of heaven's beauty and splendor. This world is imperfect and subject to decay, but heaven's perfect beauty will never fade. However, the essential truth about heaven is that God will be there. No evil will ever touch us, and we have the promise we will be safely in God's presence forever. The Bible says the city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb, Christ, is its lamp. Think of it. In heaven, we will be with the Lord forever. In closing, I firmly believe that Ralph is in heaven on this bright sunny day. And because he enjoyed life so much, I know he is enjoying paradise even more. He is breathing the pure, sweet air in his new glorified body with no more pain or suffering. Ralph loved people, and they felt it. I know we would love to spend one more minute with Ralph here on earth, but compared to the glory he is seeing and being with Jesus right now, he wouldn't be able to stand even 1 second back here on earth. Is heaven your destination? Do you know beyond a doubt that someday you will be with Christ forever? You can turn to him in faith and trust him alone for your salvation. God's promise is for you. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. And that's from John's Gospel 3:36. If you want what Ralph has right now, or maybe you're not sure if you're going to be spending eternity with God one day, I pray you will come see me after this service, and I will help you on your path into your eternal kingdom with God. Religion doesn't save people. Jesus does. I want us all to pray for comfort and understanding for this beautiful family. I know they want to thank you for your kind outpouring of sympathy for our Ralph. I pray for safety as you travel back to your destination. And now I'd like to invite Ruth Lynch up.
Good morning. Giving honor unto God, to the family, our officiants that are here today. I'm truly privileged to be here. I've lived on the fringes of their life, and I feel that I'm family, so thank you for this honor. I remember births and weddings and other losses that we have all experienced. To our public servants, I'd like to say thank you so much for your protection and your loyalty to this community. I had the privilege of being at Ralph and Melinda's wedding, and what a joy, how much fun we had that day. And I have the privilege and honor of being here as we honor an incredible man who touched us all. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace first appeared, the hour I first believed. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
On behalf of the City of Amarillo Police Department and a grateful community, we present you this Texas flag to honor the service of Officer Ralph Fletcher. He was a wonderful policeman, an icon in our community, and a great friend to all of us in law enforcement. He'll be missed and all the time.
I was born in Louisiana, down on the old bayou. Raised on shrimps and catfish, Mammy's good gumbo. I got the rambling fever, said goodbye to Ma and Pa. Crossed that old Red River, this is what I saw. I saw miles and miles of Texas, all the stars up in the sky. I saw miles and miles of Texas, gonna live here till I die. I rode up into Austin, the cradle of the West. Just ask any cowboy, he'll tell you it's the best. I met a Texas beauty, I got friendly with her pa. I looked into her big blue eyes, and this is what I saw. I saw miles and miles of Texas, all the stars up in the sky. I saw miles and miles of Texas, gonna live here till I die. started taming broncos. I made every rodeo until I met a tough one. You know his name was Devil Joe. I grabbed hold of his bridle just to ride this old outlaw. Threw me from the saddle, this is what I saw. I saw my